Tristan from Lions Den here. We're gonna run through our squat checklist. Our goal with this is to give you guys some strategy on how to set up for a squat and then how to properly execute a squat. So our setup starts with our bracing sequence. Our bracing sequence is going to be feet straight. I'm gonna tack big toe down to the ground. I'm gonna get my foot nice and active, gripping the ground here. I'm gonna come up to my hips. I'm gonna externally rotate, create a little bit of rotation through the hips. Glutes are gonna be engaged here. I'm gonna pull the rib cage down, so I'm gonna create a neutral position between my rib cage and my pelvis. I'm gonna take an inhale in, exhale. Once I exhale, I'm gonna contract my abdomen. It's gonna create a strong trunk engagement, a strong barrel for me here to breathe into. From there, I'm gonna take a deep breath in while maintaining that abdominal contraction. That's gonna be my strong midline position here, guys. That is gonna be my setup. Bracing sequence, feet, a little bit of rotation, glutes, rib cage down, breath in, out, contract the abdomen, and then get the head to neutral. Now I'm in a strong brace position, ready to squat. After I set myself up with my bracing sequence, we're gonna go into load order. Load order is gonna be, how do we sequence a squat? Where do we start? With our knees or with our hips? We wanna start with our hips. When we start with our hips, it's gonna create a greater recruitment into the hip complex as a whole. And for a lot of people who complain about knee pain, this is a great way to pull out of that knee pain. So we're gonna get rid of knee pain by sequencing through our hips. So I'm gonna get feet straight, run through my bracing sequence real quick, then break at my hip. Hip's gonna lead that movement. They're gonna unlock, my hip's gonna unlock the knees. I'm gonna sit down into my squat, maintaining that neutral position. Up, and then I'm gonna finish through my glutes to get back to that strong midline position. So that bracing sequence is our starting position. As I come back up out of the bottom of my squat, it's gonna be our finishing position as well. Last thing we wanna go over here real quick is torque principles and how they apply to our squat. I want my feet to be straight or mostly straight because that's gonna allow me to generate external rotation through the hip. That torque is gonna give me stability through the joint capsule of my hip. That's going to create for a stronger pelvic support, and it's going to make sure that I'm not dumping a bunch of pressure into my lumbar spine. So it's going to put me into a strong position. It's going to mitigate any injury risk or tweaking of my back, and it's going to increase performance because it's going to put me into the strongest possible position. Some common faults that we see with squats, guys, is not applying torque for one, so coming down and knees kind of caving in, my feet spinning out, kind of creating this valgus fault here where everything kind of dumps inwards because I'm not creating a strong strategy for how I'm going to set up here, right? So if I set up and I hit that bracing sequence and I create that torque and load order correctly, I'm gonna really position myself to not kind of fall into this collapsed position, right? So this is one major fault that we see. When we lose the foot and ankle, then it's real difficult for the hips to do their job. So when everything starts to roll inwards, you're gonna position yourself potentially for injury and certainly for a performance loss there. Another thing is going to be not really setting up the spine. That bracing sequence is there to create that neutral position for the spine. If I don't create that bracing sequence, then it's easy for me to overextend into my lumbar or start to get into some flexion through my thoracic spine or all down my spine. So really make sure if you run through that checklist, it's going to position you, it's going to start you in a position where we're not going to run into some of those common faults. Go through that load order, that's going to increase our overall performance. It's going to, again, mitigate the likelihood of an injury and apply those torque principles and give that a shot.